Thank you for tuning in to Ending the Arkansas Opidemic, the vodcast that takes a deep dive into the opioid epidemic in Arkansas. Here we will talk about the life-changing impact that opioids are having on Arkansans and speak to the people who have seen the devastating effects of opioid misuse firsthand. My name is Dr. Cheryl May. I'm director of the University of Arkansas System's Criminal Justice Institute, and I will be your guest host for this vodcast. My hope is that this program can bring awareness to the opioid epidemic in Arkansas and help us all work together to prevent opioid misuse and abuse and save the lives of countless Arkansans. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, proud to be here.
We're with Kirk Lane. He's the state drug director. He's been in this position for a number of years, and let me just say on a personal level that we appreciate everything that you're trying to do for the state. And again, appreciate you taking time to be here to explore and answer some of these important questions. The first question I have for you is what exactly is the Arkansas Drug Take-Back event, and why is it so important to Arkansas?
So that's a great question. Early on in 2010, we began to realize that Arkansas had a problem that was similar or growing like the rest of the country. Arkansas being a little bit behind the other states because of a strong methamphetamine trend, tended to be a little slower in getting involved in prescription drug abuse that we were seeing in our state or that we were seeing in the rest of the country. And so with that, we realized that a lot of people were overdosing on prescription drugs that they were getting from their prescriber. And a lot of prescription sharing, young people getting into the prescription pill bottle, the lack of education there were for law enforcement and community and even the prescribers on prescribing and those issues were glaring. And so one of the first things that we did is we came up with a program, the Arkansas Drug Take-Back. And a lot of people think it's about collecting medications. Well, that's just a piece of it. What it's really about is teaching people and educating people in communities about monitoring, securing, and disposing of their medications safely. One, for protection of their families, protection of their communities, but second, also for protection of the environment. Because a lot of the ways that we were disposing of our medications was simply by flushing them down the toilet, and they were getting into our water systems, or disposing them in a landfill, and they were getting into our groundwater. So as much as a personal safety aspect to the drug take-back, it also is an environmental safety issue too.
Yeah, and is this something that's only unique to Arkansas?
It isn't. It's actually a nationwide program now. We were one of the first states to get involved with it back in 2010, and it's kind of grown from there.
And that was mostly because of your leadership at the Benton Police Department.
Well, thank you for that, but it really takes a village. There was a lot of partners in there. Our former drug director, Fran Fleener, was a key element in getting the partnerships and the coalitions together. And the Criminal Justice Institute, your partnerships along with Rotary, with the Pharmacy Board, just countless people that have been involved with this program from the start. There wasn't a lot of money to put into this program, so everything was grassroots, and everything was, we see the need, and we see the reason why we need to be involved, and what do I need to do my part.
Why is it so important that we take these drugs out of the homes?
Well, I think it's very important, one, for a safety factor, because drugs, as I understand it, degrade over a period of time past their expiration. They get misused and they get in the hands of the wrong people. Drugs are prescribed for that person that's named on that pill bottle and not the whole family and their friends. And so when they get misused in that capacity, we're seeing injury occur and even death occur, and misuse and abuse occur.
And that's particularly significant when it comes to opioids, is it not?
Oh, absolutely. We, for a long time, opioids, and we're in our third opioid epidemic. We realized that in this opioid epidemic, that it's our greatest epidemic that we've ever seen. And so, the fact that those opioids have become deadly and used much more than, and abused much more than ever before. And again, the lack of education there was on the prescriber part and the community part about the values around opioids and the danger around opioids and how they become addictive.
Yeah, and one of the key dangers is that they're extremely addictive.
They're extremely
and that
addictive.
was something that a lot of folks didn't know about for the decades that they've been
That's correct.
being prescribed.
Yeah. One of the things, Dr. May, is, Arkansas didn't, the prescribing community didn't buy into the standards that were set for prescribing. And it wasn't until 2018 that our medical board took in those standards that were advised to us by the federal government about prescribing, length of prescribing. And so for a long time, our prescribing rate has been extremely high.
Yeah, and this event occurs twice a year.
It does.
And would you explain to folks that, what region we're in and how we end up, the success that we've had?
Sure.
In our region?
So we're part of what's called the Gulf Coast HIDA, which is a DEA-affiliated working group with Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi. We are in that 4-state area. We are the highest collecting state. Matter of fact, we collect more in Arkansas than the other states combined. So we're pretty proud to be in that. But as much as we do collect, and to date we have collected and safely destroyed over 221 tons of prescription medication, unwanted prescription medication, which is over 400,000 pounds. As much as we do of that, we realize that that is significant to the education that we're getting out there, the buy-in that we're getting from the community, and people wanting to keep their homes in Arkansas safe.
Yeah, and you mentioned a little bit earlier the importance of them knowing how to properly dispose of them. And while we do have take back twice a year, and that's usually in...
It's in the spring and in the fall. And actually this year will be October 23rd on Saturday. And it's a 4-hour period where law enforcement agencies and their partners, and we have a lot of partners with them, different groups, prevention groups and recovery groups and community groups that partner with the law enforcement agency to provide a drug take-back. And they register with the Drug Enforcement Administration in Little Rock, and we have those sites set up. Usually it's somewhere between 175 to 225 sites.
That's awesome.
So what makes Arkansas unique and so successful is on top of those registered sites for those 2 days, there's over 270 24-hour drop boxes. There's at least one in every county of the state. And those boxes are there. So if you can't make the drug take-back day or don't want to go out, and especially with the concern of COVID and not wanting to socialize, you can go to those take-back boxes and dispose your medications when you want to and how you want to.
Director Lane, we've talked about the volume of drugs that you all collect every year. What happens to those drugs when you're done collecting them?
Good question. We have built this into a science with some great partners that we have with the Drug Enforcement Administration and our Arkansas National Guard. They are tremendous partners, and they have a logistical team that actually studies the amounts that are collected in different areas and is able within 24 to 48 hours after an event to organize a collection partnership and collect all those drugs, bring them into a central hub, load them onto a tractor trailer, and with the help of DEA, we take them out of state into a commercial incinerator that is environmentally friendly, and they are destroyed forever. Awesome.
We've ranked very, very high as a nation when it comes to our prescribing rate. Mm-hmm. If you could please tell our audience
Sure.
Where we rank nationally and also talk about some of the things that you've done in addition to Arkansas Take Back to kind of get those numbers down to where they are.
So our prescribing rate for opioids was very concerning, and right now we're still ranked number 2 in the nation. And we've been number 2 in the nation since, I think, 2014. We're currently at 86.3 opioid prescriptions for every 100 people. We're actually at the lowest rate we've been since 2005. We've come down a lot. And in that pathway of coming down, we developed the prescription drug monitoring program and different facets of the prescription drug monitoring program as a point and as a tool to help prescribers prescribe smarter and know their patients and know trends in their patients and make sure there wasn't an issue called doctor shopping where a patient was going to doctor to get abundance of medication, a lot of times for because of their own substance use disorder or to sell. And so that program of the prescription drug monitoring program really helped to slow that down. But it was a difficult path. A lot of people like in change, everything's a difficult path. And we were able to get that done at several different steps and different programs to be in there, along with law enforcement access, different measures in that prescription drug program to make all that happen. The development of what we call AR Takeback, the website, so people could have that, or citizens could have that connectivity to where those sites are at, where the events are at. We expanded that ability to be a one-stop shop to everything that's going on out of the drug director's office, whether it had to do with enforcement of prescription drug medication or whether it had to do with prevention, treatment, and now recovery. And then our partnerships with Criminal Justice Institute as one of our principal players in the Narcan program that we have and the development of the Arkansas app, which has connectivity to AR Takeback, where people can get that information. So you can download the app for free, go on to the app, look at Arkansas Drug Takeback, put in your zip code or your address, and you can find 24 hours a day the closest drug take-back box or the event closest to you.
Yeah, when we talk about the importance of the take-back and trying to get these medicines that people have in their home, and we look at the significance of people becoming and developing substance use disorders by opioids. It's not the Oxycontins and the Percocets that are causing the biggest problem, but that's one of the key ways in which people can develop a substance use disorder. Would you spend just a little bit of time to talk about how there's a cascading effect and what's going on right now with opioids?
Sure. So, early on in 2010, we saw a lot of substance use disorder or abuse involving the pills. And a lot of times we're involving the pills that were in somebody's medicine cabinet. You would have friends or family come over or a guest in your household, and they would go into your medicine cabinet, because I would venture to say, I know in my household, my mom and dad kept their medications in there, and their grandparents or their mom and dad kept their in there, and grandparents did the same. So one of the concepts around the Take Back program is changing that. Locking up those drugs, especially the ones that have opioids or the ones of danger, monitoring how many you have, which is difficult to do, because how many, you got 75 pills, but you don't really keep track of how much you have every day. And people know that. And people that would tend to victimize you or victimize that pill bottle would go in there and take 2 or 3 out or take them all out. And then you would go back to your doctor to say somebody stole my medication. But they were getting those and getting those out. So what we realized too, as somebody's substance use disorder that became dependent on prescription medication, that they would tend to doctor shop and they would try to get more medications. And as we kind of blocked that avenue or they struggled with that avenue, then they would steal from their friends and family, and then move on to street drugs or those same prescription drugs. So like hydrocodone. So time to talk about hydrocodone for a minute. A lot of times it comes in a 30 milligram pill, and usually street drugs go for $1 a milligram on the street. So a 30 hydrocodone would cost you $30 on the street if you were buying it. And some people had a 5 pill a day habit or a 10 pill a day habit. I've seen it grown into a 30 to 40 pill a day habit with different people that I've talked to. And so when you start adding the dollars out and realizing that a substance use disorder doesn't break for the weekend and get the weekend off, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you start adding the dollars in that. And so you start putting that, when I wore my Chiefs hat, to crimes that were going on in the community, whether it be shoplifting or burglary, theft, robbery, all in some capacity had some kind of drug nexus. So as you move forward into your substance use disorder and you're spending $1,000, $2,000 a day, and along comes heroin, which is twice as strong as morphine, for $5 a paper. It's an easy transition to move to that because now our drug cartels, our Mexican drug cartels, realize that you have Arkansas, which is a high opioid dependent state. People and the market is there with dollars. So moving drugs, those type drugs into a state like Arkansas is just good business at the end of the day. And so they moved heroin, and then what we're seeing now, heroin laced with fentanyl or illicit, what we call an illicit fentanyl that comes in from China into Mexico and then now back into Arkansas and throughout the country. And fentanyl is 50 to 100 times stronger than heroin. And so it becomes very deadly because fentanyl reacts to somebody very, very quickly.
And typically when we talk about individuals that have a substance use disorder, like a addiction to heroin, these are not the same people that we traditionally, decades ago, perceived of them being, more in urban areas, homeless, under overpasses. Who are these people today?
They're everybody. Because prescriptions have always been accepted and had the mindset that they came from a doctor and they were safe. The abuse of prescriptions has been widely accepted. I think late in the 60s and early 70s, you used to start to see movie and television shows about, housewives and just taking pills for anxiety or any type of woe there was to do that. So because it was widely accepted, it didn't really mesh to or stick to one race, one gender, one age group. It spread out amongst them all. And generally what we're seeing now in looking at our naloxone administrations, we're seeing the biggest set of people that are needing help between 20 and 50 years of age. Yeah. And unfortunately, while we always spend a lot of our prevention efforts and dollars into educating and trying to prevent substance use in our young people, that 20 to 50 year age group is our parents, is our brothers, our sisters, our people that people look up to, and they see that's how they're solving their problems. And so unfortunately, a lot of times they'll emulate that. One of the next highest group is 50 and above, where you have your seniors that are taking medications, and usually a lot of medications, and a lot of times are raising our kids because mom and dad are working in those two-party working homes. And so the younger people are coming into those homes knowing there's a lot of medications that the seniors aren't watching them as close, and they're getting those medications. So the Take Back program is really aimed at those senior populations very heavily in education. But a lot of times our seniors are taking those medications, they get confused and they accidentally overdose, or sometimes with anxiety become suicidal. And we're seeing those medications used in those aspects.
Because there are obviously very legitimate reasons why some people take pain meds.
Sure. And there's a lot, taking prescription medication as designed by your physician and not beyond that, and your own common sense about your body and what your body needs is, there's nothing wrong with that. It's going beyond that, and it's becoming addicted or having a substance use disorder, or be willing to understand and listen to your physician when they try to take you off that and wean you down, or find some other substance to take you off of that. Because we realized years ago, back after the Civil War and the first opioid epidemic, that opioids weren't made for long-term use. For short-term injury and things like that, they were perfect. But for long-term use, they became addictive.
And that's mostly because the tolerance of our body
That's right.
Requires more and more of the drug. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, and I'm not the scientist, and I know you are, and but more or less, your body in taking that opioid, as I understand it and what I've been advised and taught, builds up a tolerance to that drug. And so you have to take more and more of that drug to try to get that same effect. And at some point, the effect of that opioid is not helping you at all in your pain issue. And it really, you become addicted or develop a addiction to that drug. And so you have to have that drug, so you have to function properly. So what we're seeing is people wake up in the morning and they have to have that drug to go to work. They have to drive. They have to drive the school bus. They have to have that drug to function, and they continually use because they don't want to go into withdrawal, where they know they're going to feel really bad and have that sickness. And so the thought of that is there. Dr. May, in talking to people in recovery, they pursued the drug, and then when they got the drug, and as soon as they shot it up in their arm, they hated themselves for having to do it. But they know they had to do it, and they had to get through it. And then their focus was, where am I going to get my next fix? And so listening to that and understanding the disease of this substance, and that's what a lot of times that society didn't realize it was a disease, and a lot of times is a disease, that substance abuse is a disease and not an embarrassing criminal effect of what it was. That's something we created.
Yeah. And, you talked about the data and how they are indicating that, the age range is 20 to 50. But there are also a number of our kids, and unfortunately, you've talked to parents who their children have gotten addicted and developed a substance use disorder, mostly through the pills that they started ingesting.
Right.
Could you spend a little bit of time talking about that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when I talk to them, look at the end result and how somebody in those devastating situations ended up, and they died of a heroin overdose. But a lot of them forget how they started.
Right.
Whether it had been from childhood trauma, or which led them into using marijuana, using alcohol, prescription drugs, and prescription drugs, which is deemed to be in their mind safe, and then moving on because of their substance use disorder into those other drugs that are out there. And so I think the messaging and part of the prevention efforts that we're doing is trying to educate that, especially now that we have so much illicit fentanyl, especially in the last year coming into our state, that we're seeing people die of what they call polydrug overdoses, with these fake pills that are that look to be oxycodone or Oxycontin or Xanax or hydrocodone, and they're really aspirin laced with illicit fentanyl or pure fentanyl or a combination of methamphetamine or cocaine. And we're even seeing some deaths with marijuana and fentanyl, whether it's vaped or smoked. We're not sure because we haven't dug into the weeds on that, but literally. But we are finding marijuana fentanyl overdoses in there. So the point I'm trying to make is we realize nowadays that it's so dangerous that any drug use could be a fatal drug use because you really don't know what you're getting.
Yep. And for a lot of instances, it starts with those pills.
It does.
So that's why it's so critically important that we get as many of these pills out of circulation. So if somebody wants to find a drop box, again, how do they find that?
Sure. So they can go to www.artakeback.org, and you can click on that site, say right there on the top page, find a drug take-back site. And we're updating it constantly because a lot of agencies are registered, but also all the 24-hour drug take-back boxes are on there. Or you can download the Arkansas app, which is free. You can download it on your phone. It's got great information about administering Narcan. Will teach you how to save somebody's life, but it also has prevention, treatment, and recovery information. And for the purposes of October 23rd, it's got the take-back site on there where you can click on that, and it'll connect you right to AR Take-Back.
Yeah, and if a citizen finds out after looking at this information that there's not a take-back box in their area, who should they contact?
Well, I think two things. I think the biggest thing that you ought to do is contact your law enforcement agency. A lot of times my fellow chiefs and sheriffs didn't want to get involved in a take-back program because they said nobody in my community was interested. Nobody came and talked to me about it. And sometimes it takes that little poke to say, hey, I'd like to have a take-back program in there, and they can understand it. Or you can contact my office or Criminal Justice Institute will partner with us a lot of times in sharing that information. And if somebody wants a box, that's fine. But I also want to add to the fact that, if you are considering cleaning out your medicine cabinet and keeping your home safe, realize that you don't have to be picky about what you need to turn in. Whatever you feel comfortable in turning over, however you want to turn that over, you don't have to peel the labels off it. You can if you want to. If you feel more comfortable, put it in a plastic bag and turn it over, you can do that. Whatever you feel comfortable in doing, that's what we want you to do, because as much as it is a community service, it really is probably one of the principal community policing programs we have in the state to interact with your law enforcement agency and your community. It's all about keeping your home safe, and it's all about that educational component.
Yeah, for the April take back, you guys were in Searcy.
We were.
And it was great. I had the pleasure of being there with you.
Sure.
It was awesome to see that firsthand. So where are you guys going to be this time?
So the one before that in the fall, we were in Hot Springs, and then we were in Searcy, and this year we'll be in Pine Bluff.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for everything that you do. This is a critically important event for everybody in this state. Sure. But I think one of the key messages that you instill in all of us is that it's just not one person that's going to make the difference. It's going to be all of us working together.
It takes a village.
Thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you.
We appreciate you greatly. Thank you so much for tuning into today's vodcast. For more information about the Arkansas Take Back Day and to find an event or permanent drop box location, visit artakeback.com. Additionally, find more free resources by downloading the Arkansas app.